Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it is time for...
Oh, oh, unspun. I have to drink. I have to drink.
Hold on, I'm applying for this job.
Seriously.
95 grand? I can do that.
It's you're referring to the new position that's available, potentially available in the near future at City Hall in the communications kind of department. Oh my God! Like seriously.
Okay, let's dial this down. First and foremost, I missed you, buddy. Last week we did a little bit of a little pivot. I had a great time with McLean though. McLean K was great, sitting in the George Affleck chair, and I loved watching you on the BC Poly hot stove. We got all the stuff in that Jordan and McLean wanted to chat about, but we're back. And from now on, we're just going to do extras of Unspun because we like to make sure we've got our weekly. We had a marathon going there, George.
We did, and you know, we get a lot of requests for people who wanted to be on the show, and so we'll think about maybe adding some extras in there to have maybe guests and things like that. We'll see, but
we'll keep
a lot of work.
This is our exactly. Woo! Let's start. Let's dive into this because we're actually starting late today. We always record on a Thursday morning, or we try to anyway.
Right.
But the mayor, Kennedy Stewart, has kind of encroached on our timing and held a press conference.
His weekly press conference that he holds, which, you know, in one way it's great that he's being open to being, you know, talking to media and exposing himself, which the previous mayor was not into it at all, as we know.
Yes.
But you know, he put himself into his press conference today to make some announcements about, I don't know, health stuff. But it got usurped by a bigger, more pressing issue that Global sort of uncovered via Sarah Kirby-Young, Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young, and that the fact that they had approved a $95,000 new staff communications person for the city manager's office, I guess a position who would do social media management. So I guess sending tweets about attacking us, maybe. I don't know.
I'm so blown away. Like, wait. So the city manager doesn't use the comms department that has dozens of people working in it?
Yeah, apparently the mayor doesn't either, because today at the press conference, his staff person, he has one, he says, one staff person in comms in his office, was not there today. So they hired an agency, as was uncovered by Jordan from Global, that cost them $2,500 to manage the press conference, which
today's press conference.
Yeah, so I guess
because there were no comms. There were no comms people.
I guess there was no other comms people in City Hall. Go to the 10th floor, dig around. You'll find one. You'll find 43 of them.
Okay, what's going on here?
I just can't understand the logic and the unbelievable tone deafness of this. And this is not an attack on staff and anything, and people might say, oh, you shouldn't be attacking staff. And that's kind of where the mayor was spinning it today. It was like, this is not, you know, we have 10,000 great staff. He wouldn't answer some questions. You know, Jordan from Global said, how many communication staff are there at City Hall? He would not answer the question. He simply kept saying, you know, I have one staff communications person in the mayor's office. You know, we have a budget approved that you all are aware of. Staff are great, 10,000 people, $1.6 billion budget. You know,
none of that answers the question of how many comms people are there. Like, did he get?
He just spun that sucker. Like the worst spinning I've ever seen, because the media and everybody listening or watching were just going, what the actual F are you doing? It was, I mean, it was unbelievable how bad he was at trying to answer the question. The only answer to that question in my mind was, yes, that budget, because they approved the budget, because we stuck on that. Yes, they approved that budget, but I can tell you right now, I will stand up for the people of the city, and I will make sure that person's not hired. And if the city manager wants to hire that person, he'll be talking to me. That's the answer that I would have wanted to hear as a resident, you know, because right now, the most important thing in this city is the health of our residents and the economy in general. And we need to focus on that, not on, you know, telling messages and having spin doctors at City Hall. Absolutely not. There's an answer I wanted to hear. Nope. We have $1.6 billion budget. Boo to that, by the way. Boo. 1.6 million. Already you got me mad. And not answering the actual specific question, which I really appreciated Jordan asking that question, saying, how many staff do you have? And then of course, they cut Jordan off. They literally shut him down and said, next person, please. You've had enough questions. He had 2 questions. And they went to Lisa, I think it was Lisa Yuzda, and she said, who's a reporter.
Love her.
At NW, and she said to pick up
News 1130 now.
Sorry,
Long
News
time
1130.
NW.
Sorry,
News 1130, just to be clear.
Yeah. So you know, to pick up where Global went, I'm going to go and ask the same question, and still speedy ways.
I don't understand, and I missed this part of the press conference. I caught the tail end of it, and what strikes me at these availabilities, and again, like when people come at you particularly, and sometimes me a little bit, are like, why are you attacking City Hall staff? Not attacking staff, holding the mayor to account on taxpayer dollars being spent appropriately, particularly at a time, and this is what really kicked my ass with this one, is there's $95,000 for a social media manager, which, by the way, is an outlandish salary for a social media.
I own a communications company, and that would be the highest paid job in my office. So
by leaps and bounds, my friend. I know people who are hardworking 24/7, 365 journalists who don't make $95,000.
Kirk LaPointe put that tweet out there saying he doesn't know that there are to pay $95,000 for a social media manager when there are fewer and fewer journalists in the city, and most of them, almost none of them, make that kind of money.
Yes. So, and then going back to like just 2 short weeks ago, a huge topic for you and I was slashing of the budgets for the Vancouver police.
Yeah.
Essential services. And how we're bankrupt. We're screwed. If we don't get bailed out by the feds or the province, we're going to shutter the city.
I don't know where the mayor is like living in his mind on these things, and council, the majority of the council making those decisions.
But good on council, though. Good on council. They came forward with what, 3 options?
Well, no, staff did. Staff
did.
Behind
the scenes.
Staff were this week.
There you go. There's a staff moment.
Yeah, there we go. Staff did a good job in showing and providing us a sense of confidence that there is a way through this financial nightmare that the city is in, and proving that the city's not going to go bankrupt. They presented 3 scenarios based on how long the crisis might last. Their estimation is, to end of August, and then some things will get back to somewhat normal, and that's the financial picture. And then they had a scenario if it goes to end of October, and how much that would impact things. So, and then they present. So the math they did was on an August end date, and then here's where we have to cut. Here's how we found savings. Here's where the money's coming from, and there we go. We got a break-even budget. So, they did it, and there was well done. I mean. But, it should have been done a month ago, or it should have been...
Before he announced it was bankruptcy.
I know. He should have said staff are working on this. In about 3 weeks, they're going to come back with a plan, and it's going to be great. And don't worry, everybody, we got you. We got you back.
We're a solution-based city. We make things happen here in Vancouver. Yes.
And in the meantime, council, we will focus on moving some things to help small business and to help restaurants. And
let's talk about that. That's a huge victory, George.
That was also why I was drinking at the beginning. Not only was I drinking because I wanted to get drunk on that decision about new social media manager, but I also was it's a celebration of things we've been talking about for 2 months on this podcast, about the city loosening up the regulations for the all the restaurants and anything really, for that matter, across the city, for patios.
It's huge. It's huge. It's going to help. Oh man, I can think of so many. And full disclosure, my significant other is a chef. He works in the industry, or has been laid off by the industry. But there is now sort of a buzz of him getting back to work, and this is part of the puzzle. This is part of the pathway that gets there. And one in particular, restaurateur, local, small, hardworking, names on the building. He's actually the guy in back making the best burger in the city, and Jim Romer. I've never seen anybody work so hard. He was already struggling to staff his restaurant before COVID-19,
those days,
right? Because. And then this happens, and he is just like, I need help. And I'm like, you've got a parking lot right next to your restaurant. Wouldn't it be unbelievable
Perfect.
that on a sunny day, that's a patio, and a rainy day, people drive up in their cars and they can eat in their car? And he's like, oh my God, that needs to happen. So yay
excellent.
for that. Yay for that.
Yes. I know, it was good. And then there was actually also a report that got totally buried this week in council, which was not the most sexy report, but it was about waters and sewers in our city. And this went through council, basically what's on consent, basically it's called. They didn't debate it, or they didn't have any questions to the staff, and they waived the report. That means they say, yeah, we don't need to have this report presented. This report represents billions of dollars over the next several years of investment in capital investment into the issue. If you recall, about a year ago, and John Cooper from Park Board pushed this one forward hardcore, which was a sewage going into Falls Creek. That was part of this big picture. It was the solution to that problem in part. It was also a bunch of other stuff, because development and construction in our city relies on sewage, proper sewage setup and proper water systems and all that.
I wrote a column about that.
That's right. This giant report completely lost, and not one question from councillors. I was like, what? Because it was a really important report, and it just got lost.
So what happens now?
3 motions on restaurants we had to focus on.
So what happens now?
I appreciate, but what do you mean what happens? For that? Well, now with the capital budgets and all these, it just basically lays the plan for the next several years of how they're going to do.
But does it still move forward, or?
It approved.
Right.
It approved.
So it approved. So we're good. But we should be reading. We should be reading the report.
Pre-COVID, this thing would have been front page news. It would have been front page.
No, ripped apart and dissected. I mean, I don't mean ripped up like and thrown. We need it to happen. We need it to happen, and we need it to happen faster.
It's the kind of capital things that are important, I mean, housing is important, but it's not a city basic thing. Sewers and water and infrastructure like that's what cities do. And so that's why this report, for the relevance of what you do at City Hall, that was the most important report of probably the last 5 years.
Right. I want to see that.
Just
lost in space, but at least it's going to happen. You know what? I think our next, and we've been talking about this for ages too, but I think the next bee in the unspun bonnet is transparency. I want to see the budget. Let's show taxpayers how their money is being spent. Let's look at what's there, and together as society. I'm naive, and I'm poking the bear. Of course I am. I want it to happen. How do we get it to happen if we don't talk about it? We're going into the third budget for this council. I know.
And there's nothing, no change in anything. They'll start the process next month for the next year's budget. Usually it starts happening in June, throughout the summer, and then they come with the first iteration of the budget in September. I don't see any change really in the process or anything.
Makes me crazy, George. Crazy. Anyway, what doesn't make me crazy, what's making me very proud to be a British Columbian, is how our real flattening of the curve with regard to COVID-19 numbers. Obviously, we're all still glued to the daily briefings, even if they come out just in document form from Dr. Bonnie Henry. And when we're zero death, when we're talking about single-digit new cases, also excellent. Talking about the serology tests that are coming out, 300,000 British Columbians have taken that survey. There's like the tiniest window to take that survey if you want to, and that's about. Do you want to be tested?
The time has passed, by the way. I think
has it? Was it last night?
I think it was last night, and I thought it was tonight. Part of that survey had included if you wanted to get the blood test, put you in.
That's why I did it.
Yeah,
I did it the first day it came out, and I'm like, yes, I do. I think I had it. I think I had it. I think I gave it to Amanda.
All of us.
I'm sorry. And then you gave it to everybody at the Websters. Anyway.
Not me.
No, Amanda. No.
She had something else.
It's just a matter of, this phase 1, phase 2, the reopening, right? Like the careful.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see a spike a little bit, maybe in a week or so when we see the numbers, maybe, but I think that when you compare us to what's happening in Ontario and Quebec, where they've gotten stricter again, they announced they had to pull it back a bit and be more strict again. And the animosity in those two provinces, which we haven't had here, except for the occasional, personal stuff you might experience out there with some, people who are either one way or the other.
I'm trying really hard not to do that, though. I'm trying. I find it difficult, but I I'm trying to not be a COVID cop.
Yeah, it's not cool.
It's not
because
cool.
we haven't had to be, and we are proving that you don't have to be. I think we're
Right.
all responsible, because if you create that animosity, that division, that you, us versus them, or whatever, mask, no mask, you create this negativeness, and then people start going, yeah, screw you, I'm not going to do it then. You know
Right.
that.
Okay, so mask or to mask or not to mask, that really is the question.
Well, it's getting more and more difficult not to, because Costco's requiring it. A few other big retailers are requiring it. Restaurants will likely require, at least in a certain area, like at the lineup, or there's, and the staff will have to. And, I got my hair cut. I don't know if you noticed.
I totally did. I was going to say it looks.
It's a bit short. I said, leave it along. And this is what he didn't leave it long. But, I went to my barber.
Yeah, but you left it a little long up front.
It's a bit, yeah, it is.
I like it. I like it.
Thank you very much. Well, I went to my barber, and they were all wearing masks. And this is an old school barber shop that I go to for my $17, because I like to spend big when I get my hair cut. They were all wearing masks, but they didn't.
Do you ever wear one?
No, I haven't.
No.
I have one, but I haven't.
Right.
I'm trying. No, I will. When I go to Costco, I will. But that's the only place I can think of that I go. I don't get out much.
No. Did you read my column?
Yeah. So this is the thing. Go ahead, tell about it, because that's the thing.
Well,
where we're heading, like where will we?
Yeah. I have to give credit where credit is due here for Ian Young from the South China Morning Post. Like, I've been talking with Ian since January on the topic. As soon as there was this novel coronavirus identified in Wuhan, and Ian had posted a photo of Aberdeen Mall in Richmond being completely empty just before Chinese New Year, which is just completely it's not typical. That, like, it's the epitome of not typical. So I had Ian on to talk about that, and he had written a blog. He's got a blog called Vancouver, and he writes about wearing masks and maskophobia and racism around people who wear masks, because it was very much just an Asian community, specifically Chinese community thing, that, why were those people wearing masks? And now you walk down my neighborhood in Kitsilano, I went by the Parthenon and social distancing lineup, 15 people in line, every single one of them wearing a mask. Doesn't matter what their ethnicity is. Everybody's wearing them now. And it was Ian who really, really hit home about wearing a mask is about protecting others. It is an act of community. Right. And that's why the Chinese community, they're protecting one another. They're used to living in very densely populated areas. And as Richmond, and basically our city, Metro Vancouver, is a suburb of Beijing, if you ask Ian Young of the South China Morning Post, they get their news, that community gets their news largely from mainland China, and that's why people started wearing masks and self-isolating and doing all these things. So then fast forward to where we are, and the question keeps coming up about to mask or not to mask, and people are jumping all over Dr. Theresa Tam. Why was she saying no mask and now she's saying masks? It's like, calm down. Like, calm down. First of all, masks are for frontline healthcare workers. When we started with this, because that's the difference between life or death, and we were all told to go home and stay home, right? So we're not going out in public. We're supposed to stay in our own bubble. You're not wearing a mask in your own bubble in your house. No. So, and then you listen to every single time Dr. Bonnie Henry has mentioned masks, every single time. Sorry, I'm getting ranty. You can read my whole column. Read my whole column about it, because what I got to was like, I can't articulate this without getting upset about it. So I found Dan Levy, Eugene Levy's son, Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek. He put a thing on social media that really did say it all in a minute. And it is about this, the single simplest act of kindness that you can do right now is wear a mask when you go out into public, period. That's just it.
I know, but then we get the mixed messages about outside, because I don't go inside. I can't think of where I've been.
But
besides,
you don't need to go. You don't need to wear it when you're outside.
Exactly. So you see a lot of people doing it, and they judge others who are not wearing masks. I think and that's why I think it's better that we haven't gotten too strict about this. I think that educating, social media like that you described, talking about it, thinking about your family, your circle. And your that's bubble. How you make your decision. Yeah, your bubble. Make your decisions on that, and for the most part, I don't get out. I certainly don't get out my search. We're not, look, I'm in the office today. We have to go through the process with my staff. We have everything set up as per the workers, what's it called, WorkSafe BC. It's very good, arrows on the ground, pick posters everywhere. It's quite the process you have to go through. Separate all the desks and all those things, and I'm here and you're there.
I felt really weird about that. It's not big enough for the two of us.
Yeah, exactly. So, you follow these processes, absolutely. And when some organization says you got to wear a mask in this place, like there was that tweet from the States where that woman was in a shopping mall or somewhere and she wasn't, and the requirement was in the store that you're supposed to wear a mask, and then people started shaming her. I mean, if the store says put a mask on, put a mask on. I mean, and don't fight that, but don't be screaming at me if I'm walking down the street.
Don't scream anybody. No. Don't be a COVID cop. COVID cops and COVID idiots get to be in the same category as far as I'm concerned. I get all worked up about the misinformation around masks. And that's the biggie. That's the big part. Because there are people that are like, I'm going to wear my mask and I've bought this really fancy, it's got a design on it, whatever, and I wear it every time I go out. How many times have you washed it? Never.
Oh my God.
Like, what are you doing? Dr. Henry, an improperly worn mask increases your risk. Your risk. And you're going to touch your face more. We're supposed to wash your hands.
There's a confidence thing and all those things. And we've talked about that before. So it's, I think that, again, it goes back to, I feel that the way we've been handling it in BC, where had the loosest regulations in pretty much Canada, and yet we have the best results. And I think it's because we took it seriously. They didn't treat us like babies. Right. They told us, here's what the deal is. Go home, hang out there.
Gonna need you to listen. Gonna need you to do this, guys.
Think about the people around you. And as a result, we are where we are. Of course, as we all know, we don't know what the future holds, and the resurgence in the fall and the spring and all these things. But what we do now have is amazing knowledge. I think BC's template, if you take it, you can do the math on how fast you can quickly
shut it
down and how long you have to shut it down and bring it back. So it was so unknown. We've been down for 2 months. There was really, if everybody done it properly, if we'd shut the borders down, and it would have been less than 6 weeks, we would have been where we are now. And unfortunately, we're where we are. Ontario's where they are. America's where they are. Sweden's where they are. Denmark here. UK there. Everybody's everywhere. And we don't know.
We could have the BC model for all the right reasons on this one, George. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, but it has hurt the economy, and that's
it has hurt the economy,
and that's our next problem.
Yeah. Do you think our economy is going to be hit hard by the Meng Wanzhou, Ms. Meng, not going the way the Chinese government would hope?
Well, I feel sorry.
President Xi is pissed.
Yeah, and the two Michaels are in trouble.
Oh God.
This decision was really focused on whether or not this was this fraud in Canada? Was this considered fraud in Canada? Or that fraud in America was fraud. So fraud has to be somewhat generic in its nature, and so that was what this determination was. There are several more court cases to go. This was just the first one on related whether or not in Canada would this be what she did considered potentially fraud, and so that was that. And so everybody thought, oh, that's it. No, there's another bigger case to come. This is going to go on for years.
Yeah, but she's stuck here because if it was ruled that it wasn't going forward, she wouldn't be stuck here.
Yeah. But it's interesting.
That's a different piece. And then she did that photo op. Wasn't that weird? 2 days before. Did you hear about this? Where her Secret Service type bodyguards and she and a camera crew went to the Supreme Court steps 2 days before the actual ruling and did like the...
This is total spin, right? We talk about unspinning. So she would have known. She would have known the verdict at that point. She would have been told in advance. They were told in advance what the verdict was. So she knew she was not going to get off, and so she did that intentionally to build up some sort of push in China, and to make people potentially angrier.
There's corruption here.
Yeah. So it's all, and then of course today, I mean, the pressure that Trudeau, he's getting a lot of questions about China in his briefings, which may be why he skipped today. But they also made a decision today, Canada, along with the United States and UK and Australia, about Hong Kong, and saying that China is not living up to the UN agreement and not living up to the agreement in general that they had with Hong Kong. And that was a big step for all of us to come together and say, whoa, China, that's not the deal. You got to pull out of Hong Kong. You can't be, and so
messing with the financial hub.
Yeah, but also Pompeo yesterday talking about Hong Kong is, there's so many crazy things about Hong Kong.
So many crazy
America.
We got to watch it. We got to watch it closely.
Yeah.
In this time of COVID-19 well, that's another Ian Young thing as well.
Just make sure you tell the truth on Twitter. That's all.
Oh, geez. Can you believe that? It took until mail-in ballots for there to be a fact check on Donald Trump's Twitter. He's so pissed he can't even handle it.
Oh my God, he's announcing something today, like he's going to shut him down. I mean,
today, executive order today, apparently.
Yeah, or whatever. The guy, first of all, I would love to be, fly on the wall at Twitter headquarters when they're talking about how Donald Trump for the last several years has not complied with any of their rules and their policies and procedures as far as how do you use Twitter. And any other person, if I had been tweeting that stuff or you had, we would have been, you're out, you're gone. But he's gotten away with it for so many years.
I got a tweet that I had dogs playing with music in the background. And it was like 2 years ago. And they identified that the music broke copyright infringement.
Really?
The music that was playing randomly in the room in the background of me with a video of dogs playing. And your post has been removed.
That's funny because Bill Tillman just tweeted or Facebook. This happened to him yesterday on Facebook, where Bill Tillman, who's well-known communications person, every night he and his wife and a bunch of people in his neighborhood got out onto Broadway and they jump around to music at 7 o'clock and bang.
Yeah.
But they have this music, and so they were playing some music by I think it was Platinum Blonde last night. Or Men Without Hats, one of the two, one of those bands.
Awesome.
One of those
I'm
80s
down.
Big hair bands.
Yeah.
And Facebook pulled the post and said it was a violation. It's obviously robots that are doing it. It's the bots.
Yeah, it must be.
The
bots are listening.
The bots are listening.
Did you hear what Zuckerberg said though on this whole Trump thing?
Yeah, he's sort of saying he didn't think it was right that Twitter should do that. But here's the thing. I believe, what we have to understand is Twitter and Facebook are vessels for communications. They are not media outlets. And so we are all media outlets who use Twitter as the medium of the message. The medium is goes back to that whole, the medium is the message, right? I think that's Marshall McLuhan. So they're arguing, I think his argument, Facebook's argument, is that we are the medium. We're not the message. We're not the media outlet. But as Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the message. And so there's that debate that if you're a media outlet, you have a lot of power. And being a media outlet is how you push information out. And you should be responsible, like TV and radio and print have been. Obviously, they push the boundaries a lot of the time too. But there's quite often organizations that provide rules and they have to follow press councils and that sort of thing. So it's interesting his push against Twitter. Maybe he's hoping Twitter will get shut down by Trump and he'll be the only social media out there.
And then he'll find a way to create a sidebar platform on Facebook that has @ symbols and
Snapchat. Yeah.
Right. It's just, I don't know. It's something else. Watching things in the US right now and listening to just like the baseless, factless chaos of statements being made at such high levels and to not have some accountability on social media platforms. Even that little thing on that tweet to me is necessary because there's such a huge portion of the United States. Free speech is one thing, but you can't say that mail-in ballots cause voter fraud, because they just don't.
I know. He's setting, obviously you know what he's doing. This is from a spin point of view. This is setting up for if he loses, he'll use this as a tool to say that the election was not right. But
obviously they cheated.
Yeah, but it is this problem of free speech, sure. But also it's just making his base angrier. And that's not what you want either. You're just going to galvanize them to show up. And Democrats
in an election, in a pandemic, though, dude.
I know, but if you don't win elections because your base shows up. And if people are really angry, and the Democrats think, we're going to win this. We're going to win this. They won't show up, and all the angry Republicans will.
Because that's what happened that happened last time, right? Sure. Everybody stayed home because they're like, as if Donald Trump's going to win.
Happened to Adrian Dix in BC a few years back. Nobody showed up.
Right.
And so he lost big time. So, you know, it's very, very, you have to be cautious about galvanizing bases in politics through that kind of content. So I think that's what's, you know, if he does, you know, he's always looking for enemies. And so he's now Twitter's his enemy, China's his enemy. As long as it deflects the conversation about him to something else, that's always his goal. And he's very, very effective at it.
Unspun. Here we are.
That's it.
It's good to have you back, man. Namaste.
Namaste. And cheers.
Yeah. Bye.
See you later.